I've
Sorry,
got
Jake. Okay.
that's fine, that's fine. I really welcome questions at any point. So what I'm going to do is just I'll give a bit more context about myself. I'm going to share a presentation just running through kind of what we do as a business, and about the rise of the social media creator, and then we'll have time for Q&A. But I really welcome questions anytime. It's really nice to make this interactive as much as possible. So I suppose I'm just here to help you guys learn. So like, ask me whatever you want. So just for a bit of context, then I run No Logo, which is a creator marketing company and a marketplace for creator marketing. And in terms of a bit of like, just so you understand who I am, based in Edinburgh, married to Australian. I've got two kids who run around and keep me busy. And I started this business 6 years ago. So a bit of context. I studied history of art at university. I've really loved the power of images to tell stories. I went into finance for 5 years, which is not very image based, but I really enjoyed it. And then I decided to kind of merge these two interests. So I sort of thought, okay, how can I work in a more creative space with creators, but also kind of maybe a bit more business and transactional? So I started this business 6 years ago, helping YouTubers and Instagrammers to work with brands for sponsored campaigns. And if anyone says that starting a business is glamorous, you should really challenge them. And if they say it's easy, you should also challenge them. It's really, really hard. I think the media makes it like really cool to start a business, really fun. It is really difficult. I had zero experience in this space. So when I was pitching clients initially to say, could I help you? They'd be like, well, who else do you help? And the answer to that is, well, no one. So it took a bit of time. But after about 2 years, 2 or 3 years, really started to sort of grow and build. And today we're a team of just under 20 people. We've bootstrapped to that level without any funding, external equity funding. And we get to work with some of the biggest brands and creators primarily in the US. So it's been a really fun journey, and I'll share a bit more now in this presentation. And I've learned a lot. So I want to share as much as I can. I've learned a lot, but I'm still on that journey of learning. So I'm sure I can also love to hear some of your thoughts as well as I'm learning. Right, let me share this screen. Okay, is this okay? It's good. Cool. Okay, awesome. Okay, so what I wanted to focus on today is really just called the rise of the creator. And this is around the shift in the advertising industry towards working with social media creators to promote products and services. And I'll explain how we approach this industry in a unique way. So this is what I run through. I've done the introductions, talk about the rise of the creator, reimagining advertising for the 21st century. And I think this is important for anyone, I suppose everyone on this call, if you're interested in marketing, advertising, like this is part of the future of advertising. So you want to be aware of it. I'll run through like how we run campaigns start to finish to just give you that granular context. Very short bit on what's next for the industry, and then let's make lots of time for questions. So I've started a bit about this. This is our team based in Edinburgh. This is our office, and we have kind of 5 core teams that set up so you can sort of have this context here. So rise of the creator, reimagining advertising for a new era. Okay, so just a bit of context to start off with, and a lot of you will know this because a lot of you will probably love watching YouTube videos. I can't see everyone on my screen, but I would do like a bit of a shout out of, who watches more YouTube than traditional TV. But I would imagine most people on this call watch more on YouTube, spend more time on social media than you do on sort of normal TV. So this, in my opinion, is like we're in the biggest shift in advertising since the inception of the internet. there are now 200 million content creators globally. These are people who not just sort of just so like someone like me posting occasionally on Instagram. These are people with a certain level of following. And this has grown by a third in the last 12 months. So like the number of people who are pushing out content online that are interesting to brands is growing massively. Brands are moving huge amounts of budgets away from traditional media towards these creators. Average Gen Z spends 3 hours a day on social media. So brands are going to go to where people are spending time. If people are watching YouTube videos, they're going to want to work with creators who are making videos in certain areas that relate to them. So creator marketing is exploding. It's going to set to grow by 10 times by the end of the decade. So, and what I mean by creator marketing is brands paying creators to do shout outs, to create content about them, other sorts of promotions on social media. There's primarily, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but there are other channels as well. And it's can be all sorts of formats, but it's really, like you'll have all seen creator talking about something or going somewhere and sharing that with their audience. So as you may or may not know, though, it's still really, really slow and hard to work with creators. So it's a bit like before Airbnb existed, trying to book a room. Like it's really hard to find creators. So if you're a brand, how do you know which is the right creator for you? How do you find them? How do you know what their audience is like? How do you know how much to pay them? It's really hard. It's also really hard as a creator to know, how do I trust this brand? The critical thing in this industry, and if you can get this, you pretty much get creator marketing, is creators are not billboards. So in traditional advertising and sort of probably areas you've learned about, the brand creates an ad, pays some media to promote it on, buys billboard space, and it's done. In this industry, you're building a partnership between two parties. So both parties have to align and they have to want to work with each other. So if you're a sustainability creator and you've got Boohoo wanting to work with you, you're going to decline that. So it's not just as simple as brand finds creator and the creator does work. It's brand finds creator. Is the creator free? Does the creator want to work with them? All that kind of stuff. It's really hard to understand pricing, understand what values a creator or brand might have, and there's a lack of trust. So again, when you think about this, and this is really important when you're learning more about this area, and also when you're thinking about, if you're interested in sort of influencer marketing, creator marketing as a space, it's still really untrustworthy. It's still really hard to sort of get payments for brands and creators. It's hard to like understand the results, that kind of thing. So a bit of context about the business that I run, No Logo. So we are focused on building a network for creators and brands to discover and partner together. So the difference for this is that we increasingly enable brands to see the past brands that creators have worked with. We get brands able to see the pricing of a creator. Brands can see other information about a creator. So really like helping them to understand, is this creator right? And likewise, increasingly enabling creators to see information about brands. Who else have they worked with before? And basically a network. So the best way of thinking about it is this is sort of like LinkedIn or Airbnb, where creators and brands can see, who are their connections, who do they trust, and then we run everything through the platform. So creators are booked through the platform, again like Airbnb. Creators collaborate with brands through the platform, and then in due course we're going to do payments. So we're still getting to that phase, but everything's sort of streamlined through our platform, and I'm happy to discuss this more. But there's just a huge amount of friction, both finding creators, but also transacting with them. So if you're sort of Nike, you want to work with a creator, okay, how do you make that happen quickly? But if you're Nike and you want to work with 100 creators across YouTube, Instagram, how do you do that effectively? So this is just a quick example from our platform. So we have a team that helps manage campaigns, and then our platform kind of streamlines that. So we brands can book creators, see information about creators, see pricing, CPaaS work, all this information. So a bit further about us. So we work closely with 40 creators globally, primarily in the US. As a team, we're based in Edinburgh and the UK, but we primarily focus on the US market. We then have a network of another sort of 700 social media creators on our platform. And we're really focused on sustainability and sort of purpose-led content. And that's what we're known for globally. So we're really focused on kind of areas such as sustainable living, sustainable fashion, van life, healthy eating, exploration, like home interiors, that kind of thing. And our creators can reach over 100 million consumers globally, which is more than New York Times. So again, like this is a really exciting space. You know, just a small company in Edinburgh has a bigger reach than the New York Times. You know, so it's a really interesting area if you're thinking about like new areas of advertising. It's an interesting one. And some of our creators are, you know, they have their own Netflix shows, their models, that kind of thing. We've had creators speak at the United Nations. So really interesting creators, and this is kind of what we're known for globally. So today we've done 2,000 campaigns. So this is really fast moving, and I'll talk about this in a sec, but this is not like traditional advertising where it's sort of campaign is planned over sort of 6 to 12 months. These are like fast moving, you know, quick campaigns across different verticals. And these are the types of brands that we work with regularly. So all sorts of cool like tech brands, sustainability brands, and we also partner with UNESCO. We've done work for, say, the UN, etc. So mainly like focused on some sort of like purpose-led or sustainability focus. And then yeah, just campaign start to finish, but I'll just pause for a sec. Does anyone have any kind of questions, or is there any sort of like points you want clarified before I continue?
Yeah, I just want to ask a quick question. So when you were starting up, I know you said it was difficult to get traction for the first couple of years. How did you eventually get your first few clients?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the way that I started was to target. It was at a time where like vegan food was becoming particularly popular. So I started to like target vegan food creators, which were quite underserved in the market, because they're not as profitable as say like model creators or other types of creators. Because say if you're selling, this is a crude example, but if you're saying pasta, like you can promote pasta, but people might just go and buy like any type of pasta, if that makes sense. So they're not as valuable. So they were perhaps less competitive to win. So I managed to sort of find some that were open to helping me as sort of maybe sort of a mid-level standard, if that makes sense. So yeah, the first few calls were like, they were like, yeah, I will help you. And I was sort of so surprised. I was like, oh, wow, I don't have to help you with everything kind of thing. But yeah, so it really was like winning. You know, I suppose in business, you can often find some area of underserved client that does need help. And also, I think people do respect the fact that if you're starting out, you are gonna like probably hustle and work harder than they would get at like a big agency. So there is a competitive advantage to being small because they know they're going to get a better service. So those early clients helped me to learn and grow. And I think that's also increasingly in the startup world, like becoming more favored in terms of like either just, you know, going and raising a lot of funding. You can do that, but like, you know, there's a lot of risk of not understanding whether you really have a problem and a solution. So this is much more like, you know, find if there's a real problem, try and find a solution and then build. So that's what I did first. And then from there, I suppose offer them a good service, and then you start to get recommendations. We won a few big clients that were kind of vegan sustainability focused. And then from there, they told their friends.
Nice one. Cheers.
Cool.
We've got a few hands raised here, so let's start with Raj. Mine's kind of two questions. So, am I correct in saying that your business model is an agency connecting the creators and brands,
Yeah, thanks.
essentially?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So yeah, our business model is an agency that has built technology to enhance it. So we would call ourselves really like a curated marketplace. So we're mainly on the creator side. We help creators to work with brands.
Okay,
We do a little bit of helping brands work with creators. So I suppose we're taking our fee then on the brand side, but primarily we take our fee on the creator side. So we take a cut of what the creator makes. And the reason we're building technology is because we want to help, a lot of smaller creators, but we can't do that on a kind of with team members helping. It has to be automated. So the way that we've built our platform is by manually doing bigger campaigns, and then smaller campaigns we look to automate.
I see. And the second question is, um, how did you know when to outsource your work? Because of course you said that you kind of started as a one-man band by the sounds of it. And how did you go about outsourcing your work? Because I feel like that is the bit that can make or break a lot of businesses if not done correctly.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Raj. Yeah, I think one of the real challenges of building a business is that at each stage you have to learn to be good and do a completely different job. So early on, your role is basically everything, including sales. And then as you grow, it really becomes more like, okay, hiring, like, are you good at hiring the right people? And then it becomes, are you good at managing those people? And then it becomes, are you good at making the right processes so the people who manage others know how to do it? So yeah, it's a really hard step. So um, yeah, we got to a stage where we are making just enough money for me to hire two people. So I hired like a head of partnerships and ultimately a head of ops. And those two people kind of drove different areas of the business. So yeah, the way we've done it is just tried to make a bit more money than a bit more profit and then hire someone and then grow like that. So it is very hard. We made that leap, and you do get a lot of good synergies because then you're not doing everything. So
Yeah.
it's difficult. Is this like an area you're thinking about particularly, Raj?
Um, I'm not 100% sure in terms of like marketing. I've still got my mind open, but so in a sense, it's not. But I definitely like the agency side, the fact that you can project manage everything and have more of a strategic point of view. So that's something that I do like from what you're saying, basically.
Sure.
But
Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
question about like grow. I think growing is difficult because you start to that's helpful to understand. And yeah, I think growing is difficult because it starts to be about more like processes and managing. But yeah,
definitely. Thank you so
that's
much
still
for that.
good questions. It's helpful.
And then we've got Ross.
Hi there. Yeah, I just had a question regarding the creator type ad campaigns because it does seem that it can allow to get into a lot of niches where people don't necessarily feel as sold to if they have a particular creator they follow. But I just didn't and was interested financially in terms of comparing the return on investment for brands to go via the creator model versus paid Instagram ads off their own account or even up to like billboards and other types of mediums?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So we we are like really focused on I suppose very specifically like bringing creators and brands together. So it's often with big brands or big agencies that kind of have just decided this is part of their strategy and they want to go ahead with it, and we're like executing that for them. So we provide like the results and that kind of thing, but we don't. I wouldn't say we're like kind of experts in terms of we don't really like help brands go and find the best way to do their marketing, if that makes sense. We just do one thing well. But what I do know is that we've got some brands that a lot of them will pay a creator to create a sort of I suppose content to promote the brand on their own channel, but then they will use that content and boost it via the creators channel or via the brands channel. So brands really like this because they're getting two things. They're getting great content for their own channels that's very native, and they're getting promotion. In this day and age, like creating content as a big American company is immensely expensive. So if you've got creators doing it, it's like really worthwhile for them as well. Particularly during COVID, like we even had a major American brand send effectively like a robot camera to a creator's house, and then someone sat outside the house in a van and they kind of like co-made content in the creator's kitchen. So brands do it for a number of reasons outside of just the results. But from some brands I work with, what I've heard is like the content they use from the creator on their own channels outperforms the content they make by a huge amount because it's so much more engaging and natural. So it can be very effective, but also you sometimes get brands who just think they can throw like $10,000 at this and suddenly they're going to be viral. And it's just not the case. Like this is like any type of advertising. Occasionally that works, but a lot of the time this is like has to be part of a sort of unified strategy across time and different avenues. So this is definitely not a world where you just find like a great creator and pay them lots of money and suddenly you're viral. Like it's a busy world. That would be my answer at a high level.
Perfect. Cheers, Nick.
And then Jamai, did you have a question?
Yeah, hi Nick. So my question is, I'm just curious as to why you focus mainly on US creators. Is that basically where your biggest client base is? Are you specifically targeting that market rather than UK creators? Yeah, I'd just like a bit more insight onto that.
Yeah, thanks, Jamai. That's a good question. Okay, so there's a few reasons. Number one, advertising is just massive in America. So like, not only is it just a massive country, they also value advertising much higher than the UK or Europe, I would say. So they're just bigger budgets, bigger potential, more companies. It's a bigger market. Number two, a lot of creators will have a higher US following than they do a UK following, sort of like for like. So if you're a big US YouTuber, you might have like 50 or 60% of your followers are in the US. Or so if you're a big UK YouTuber, maybe only 20 or 30% of your following is in the UK. So like for like, it's much more valuable for brands in the US to work with US creators than it is for UK brands to work with UK creators. It's just like much more impact in the US. And finally, that's kind of, the budgets are much bigger. It's much faster moving. I think it's much more advanced industry. People get this more right now. It's just, they just get it better. It's just like, they're more maybe adaptable. It's just easier to work with. And then we just grew in the US, and then we grew more, and then we just as a smaller business, we only have so much resources. So we're like, look, let's build our network effect there, because it really is a network effect. So brands will come to us saying, hey, which creators would work with this campaign? But then we'll then get new creators, and then creators will come to us and we'll pitch them to brands. And so you have a network effect. So once you build in one market, it's just easier to build in that market.
Wicked, yeah. I think that's the beauty of marketing. You can do it globally. So yeah, you're confined to where you're based.
Yeah, exactly. You can ring someone in Texas at 7 p.m. and do a deal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether they're in London or Texas, So.
Wicked, yeah. Thanks for that.
Cool.
And then we've got Rayla.
Jeez. Hello. Sorry. My question is, so you work with creators who put their content on their own platform. What about like UGC, who specifically just give their content to the brand? Is that something you work with, or would you consider that separate?
Yeah, we do that. And so it would either be a combination of on Creator Channel and UGC, or it could be just UGC. So usually it's a combination, because like the brand wants both that promotion and they want the content. We also do boosting of content our side as another thing. So a brand creator might create content, promote it on their channel, and then we'll boost it. But yeah, there are sort of like businesses and platforms out there that solely focus on UGC, which is, that's a business as well. But we primarily focus on promotion, but we also do some UGC.
Is UGC growing in the sense of like the same as content creation and promotion, as you were saying?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a growing area because I suppose consumers want to have content they want to connect with brands in a more authentic, creative way. We've also seen brands kind of do in-house UGC in the sense that they like choose one of their team members to sort of be a creator and influencer, and then they create that person creates content for the brand channel. So yeah, it's definitely a growing area. I'm not sure the sort of stats on compared to like the overall kind of creator marketing space.
Right.
The reason that creator marketing, the reason we like it is just because I suppose that's our expertise, but also it's sort of it's often higher budgets for the same work for a creator because they're getting paid to promote it, but they've done UGC is like almost the same amount of work. They just don't put it on their channel.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.
Are you okay to take in more questions, Nick? Because we've got two more hands raised.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, all right. So we've got one from Fatima and then Martin.
Hi, what are the requirements you see in a content creator to actually think, okay, I want to work with this person? The requirements or things that you notice in that content creator.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Fatima. That's a great question. I suppose it's a little bit like a sports agent, right? You learn what makes a good, footballer, you learn what makes a good YouTuber. And so there are a couple of different angles. So number one, and actually most importantly, is like, what do they actually like, and can they actually execute work? Because they could have 1 million, 10 million followers, but if you can't get hold of them, if they're not willing to work on time, if they can't work well for brands, then you can't work with them anyway. So that's very important. Number two for us is like their values. So like, do they align in terms of, we're very focused on sustainability and purpose-led creators and brands. So if they're, constantly pushing fast fashion, they're probably not the right fit for our area of focus. And then number three is the content quality. So is the content really good quality? Like the previous question about UGC, if the content's not very good quality, then brands might not want to work with them. They don't feel like kind of aligned with them. The next point would then be the area they're in. So if they're in vegan food, they might be massive, but they might not get much work from brands because it's not as hot a space. So are they what vertical are they in? Are they more like model, lifestyle, that's more valuable, home, etc.? And finally, the number of followers. So someone with 1 million followers who's a vegan food creator might make the same amount of money as someone with 50,000 followers who's a model in New York, So those are probably the kind of things we're looking for. And on our platform, there's sort of the enterprise or managed creators that are very closely we work with, but then we also have the smaller creators or other creators we don't work as closely with on our platform. So we have more flexibility with those creators.
Thank you.
Perfect. And then we've got Martin, and then we can carry on with the presentation after that.
Hi, Nick. Thanks very much. It's brilliant. Could I please just ask, having gotten where you are now with the company and everything, how have you been promoting yourself? What was your strategy to kind of use to market yourself as marketing agency, please?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Yeah, it's sort of somewhat ironic. It's sort of like trying to like market yourself when you should be good at it. So the way that we've grown is by, I suppose, direct research and direct email of leading creators or recommendations from other creators to those creators. We then a very high touch bespoke pitching of those creators. So like our pitch emails are basically, can we have a call? Then we have a call, we pitch those creators, we hopefully win those creators. And so the sort of 40 or 50 larger creators we support, they then act as a flywheel or funnel for the brands. So a brand would contact them, the creator would forward that email to us, and then the brand sort of deals with us. So the creator is kind of our marketing tool. And the creator might also put like that they're, working with us or an email address for us on their, bios and stuff. So that has been our core way of growth. In this next phase of the business, we're starting to move much more into community-based growth. So like newsletters, and then starting to do more kind of seminars, Q&A, like much more like kind of connection-based marketing, as opposed to sort of like, mass Instagram ads or something like that. So it constantly adapts, Martin, but my sort of experience is trying to offer really good service to a few people and trying to get them to tell their friends like early on. That's been our focus, but it has to change over time.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, and good luck.
Sure. Thanks, man. Cool. Okay. Well, as the next phase, so I'll just talk to you about a campaign start to finish. And this is really about like the disruption of the ad industry and why this has become a $14 billion industry and why it's potentially going to be a $100 billion industry plus by the end of the decade. So I touched on this before, but creators are not billboards. Anyone in this space like should really think like this. They're really like it's really about forming partnerships. It's not really about selling ad space. And anyone who kind of comes at this from the perspective of I want to buy ad space is probably not going to be happy, or they're not going to get to work with the creators they want to. It's a very important distinction. So a traditional ad campaign, some of you will probably know this much better than I do. But a traditional ad campaign has a kind of 5 core elements. So one is, brand might go to a big ad agency and say, this is what we want to achieve. The agency will make a plan, create a brief, and then also price that out to the brand. Then there'll be creative development, what kind of angle do we want to take with this campaign? Ideas. Then there'll be the production. They'll get a model, they'll get a photographer, they'll get a set, makeup artists, everything. Then they'll do editing. Then there's the promotion. So that's like, okay, how do we make this come alive? Where are we going to buy ad space and execute it that way? And then they're going to monitor the analytics and stuff like that. That's kind of like a traditional campaign. The creator campaign is really interesting and so quick and dynamic. So the past one can be fast, but it might be a couple of months, it might be more, it might be 6 months. A creator campaign, within reason, can be done in like 1 or 2 weeks if you want it. It can be super quick. So the brand or the agency does some planning and research and negotiation. But then the creators cover all of the key processes, in-house or on location. They are the model, they are the videographer, or they might have a videographer. They edit it, they style themselves, they do everything, so they've got to come up with everything quickly. And then, monitoring, goes back to the brand. So this is like a really simple concept, but particularly during COVID, this is why creators grew a lot as well, because brands couldn't execute the standard approach, getting all these people into a room to create a campaign. They needed to do it differently, and so they would approach creators in their house, to do it. And that's what I was mentioning with that creator and sort of the robot camera as well. So this can be very quick, and it also means the creator has a bit more autonomy. So a brand might create a script, a creator will sort of, brand will create a brief, creator will create a script, and they'll like, you know, align on what to make. But the creator has a lot of like, you know, freedom around this. And that's a change for brands as well, because before they've had complete control. So kind of, you know, how it's sort of run with the creator is super quick, but basically there's outreach. The brand will say, hey, I want, you know, you to make one Instagram post mentioning my new product. The creator will sort of think, okay, does that work? How would I do it? They'll have a discussion. They'll then agree on pricing. Legal agreement, they can be very complex, the legal agreements. So they can be like, you know, if you're dealing with people like Nike, it's going to be very complex, but it can be simple. But legal agreement, the creator creates the content, that's then reviewed by the brand and signed off. And pretty much in every occasion, it's signed off by the brand. It doesn't just go live. The creator posts it, and then the brand pays them. So there's a sort of different process, but it can be a very quick and streamlined process. So this is a case study with one of the creators we work with, Shelby. She's one of the leading sustainability creators in the world. And she did a promotion for Kroger, which is a supermarket store in the US. And they were trialing different kind of zero waste and waste reduction strategies. So instead of Kroger making kind of, I suppose, like a static ad, like, hey, you know, come and shop here, and like you can buy, there's like a sort of reduced shelf where things are about to go past expiry date, or like this is stuff to help you reduce waste. They got Shelby to sort of take their viewers and community on a journey through Kroger, like understanding. And if you watch it, you'll see like it's very dynamic, it's really interesting, and she's kind of bringing her, you know, experience into it. So that's quite a good one to sort of look at. The other one, I'm not sure if this will show. This was one we did also, Shelby and HP. So HP had partnered with MIT, and this was like a promotion around kind of like a sort of initiative they were doing. Again, it could be like quite boring and static, but she really brought it to life. So I'll see if this plays. It might not.
Solutions at scale are needed to solve.
Can you hear the sound?
Yeah, that's right. That's fine.
And climate change. And right now, MIT is looking for people with those solutions. So if you watching this, or someone you know is a creative thinker, innovator, problem solver, you can submit your solutions to MIT's second annual Solve Ed Youth Innovation Challenge. That is where HP has dedicated a $100,000 prize pool as part of the Create What's Next grant. And that is specifically to benefit youth innovators who have the solutions focused on reducing, reusing, and recycling plastics and packaging.
So that's probably a bit more of like a sort of ad in terms of she's talking a lot about it, but it's just, I find it interesting because it's like, you've got like two very big brands, MIT and HP, that are like cool with the creator, like talking to camera and then shrinking their head. You know, it's like, it's very like, you know, kind of it's very kind of like, kind of just like natural, like simple, you know, and she's really connecting with your hundreds of thousands of people on that basis. And it's powerful because it's not MIT saying, hey, check this out. It's someone that they're connected with saying, check this out.
Solutions at scale.
So any questions on that?
We've got Nicola. We got your hand raised.
Hiya. Yeah, in regards to that last slide, do you know it says it's boosted, it got 400k likes. Do you decide to boost it at the beginning, or do you watch how the campaign goes?
Yeah, it's a good question, Nicola. So there's a number of different angles to that. So quite often the brand will pay an additional fee to have the right to boost it. So we would charge them an additional set fee, and then they could themselves have like a month usage to boost it, or they could maybe boost it through the creators channel. So there's two types of boosting. You probably know, one is through the brand channel and one is through the creator channel. And then in terms of the other angle, it would often be, it would either be a guaranteed deal. So we would say, look, we guarantee this is going to get 400,000 views. And if it goes viral or does really well, we don't have to do any boosting. If it doesn't do as well, we would then boost it to 400,000. And then the third type is where we would say, we will do an additional 200,000 view boost. So whatever happens, they get another 200,000. So I'm not sure in that particular campaign what the team did, but I would imagine it was probably on the brand side that was boosted.
Thanks.
And then we've got Kieran and then Sam.
Hi. My question is, I know before you mentioned about actually working with the creatives, so and making sure that that's a good balance between the agency and the person who's creating the content. My question is that what is the process of actually finding those creators and making sure that they are good to work with you in the first place? Well, is there a sort of set process that you use to find these people?
Yeah, thanks, Kieran. Yeah, so yeah, we have like obviously quite set processes, but one of the things is you want to work with people that are easy to find, because if they're easy to find, then brands will find them, other people will find them. So we use different tools to find creators, but it could also be quite manual research, looking at who's trending, like who's connected to who. It's not all sort of special clever algorithms. It can be more like, okay, how do we really find the right people? It can also be like connections, seeing they're quite connected, these creators, so who follows who, that kind of thing. And then in terms of like how to actually understand, like, I suppose that's part of the skill of the job, right? It's a bit like being a football agent. Like, how do you know that someone's good at football? There's a lot of parameters that you learn to understand, if they're good at football. And you don't have to watch every single match to know that. So there's kind of like a skill, I suppose, of learning over time, like just from lots of different dynamics. You just start to learn. Well, we've worked with hundreds of different creators. Like, we know that this person's probably quite good to work with, and then this one, there's probably some flags.
Are you allowed to mention what tools you're using?
I actually, yeah, I can. I don't do I don't use the tools, but there's one tool. There's one tool the team uses. I don't know the name, I'm afraid. But I would say there's a lot of rubbish tools out there. Like, there's a lot of people who sell tools for this kind of stuff that, like, honestly, like they're not any good. So even the tools that we use, like one of the teams use, I know from his perspective, it's like, I think it's good, but it can be quite expensive as well.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Kieran, I would say Social Blade's quite good.
Oh, okay, I'll make a note of that. Thank you very much.
That's a good one in terms of seeing like growth rates of creators and other information about creators. That's a good one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you able to put into this chat as well, Nick, so everyone can see it?
Oh yeah, sure.
Thank you. And then we've got a question from Sam.
Yeah, Nick, it was just a quick question. I'm not sure whether you touched on it, but I'm just curious in terms of with No Logo and your business model. Do any of your team act as kind of account managers? Like, do you guys kind of run any of the campaigns? Because I know, or do you just leave it all between kind of the brands and the creators?
Yeah, so we it's a good question. So on the creator side, yeah, we create the sort of main 40-50 creators we work with are like account managed. So yeah, they would have, their deals would be quite big with quite big brands. So they would have someone whose role is to really support in that process. So they're like negotiating on their behalf, they're helping on the legal agreements, or someone on the team's doing the legal agreements. Then a brand, they create content, the brand's not happy, they'll kind of like intermediate between it. So yeah, very much like that's more of the kind of agency model of like more hand-holding, more support, and really like supporting the creators. It's actually it sounds perhaps strange, but it can be very hard, it can be very lonely. being a creator is very kind of, it's either sort of like you're an influencer and people think it's like the negative in the press, or it's like, oh, you're an influencer, you get paid to do nothing and just take photos and put on Instagram. Like these people are, they are like the media companies. Some of them might have, our team and then multiple people, videographer, video editor, PA, someone else helping them. They are like media companies, and it's really hard to do it well. So we're really trying to help them to sort of develop. On the smaller scale, we're trying to make it as transactional as possible. So it's just like bring parties together automatically and try and do that. That's what we're building. But yeah, on the sort of higher level, they're very much account managed.
Nice one. Thank you for clarifying that, Nick.
Sure.
Did you have a question, Molly?
Yeah, I suppose my question is, how do you deal in your industry with cancel culture and how that would affect a brand if an influencer they were in partnership with got cancelled?
Yeah, just clarify the last bit. Are you saying if an influencer got?
Yeah, so if an influencer got cancelled for some reason and then they were partnered up with a brand, and if that would reflect badly on the brand, how do you kind of make that all okay?
Sure, yeah. Yes, there are definitely a lot of challenges in this space. And part of our role, like going back to like Kieran's question, for example, as well, as finding creators that we think we can, that are going to work well with brands for all different reasons, including this. But yes, it's really difficult because there are so many different elements. Like a creator might promote a brand and their community, and they might be happy with it, but their community might say, well, this brand's actually owned by Unilever, and Unilever's got a very bad history of sustainability, and we don't think you should have worked with them, and you're a sellout, kind of thing. So it seems simple on the surface, this industry, in terms of executing transactions and campaigns, but it's actually very complex to understand who are the right partners, what are the legal agreements related to that, and what do you do if it goes wrong. So on the creator side, a creator might work with the brand and get kind of cancelled for that. And like you say, on the other side, it could be that a brand works with a creator and kind of get cancelled. So there's a lot of good examples in the industry. You can research on that. I suppose it's really about everyone being very bought in at the start. So if a creator is sort of unsure about working with a brand, we would really challenge them to make sure they really are comfortable, and can they actually back up challenge? Are they actually going to defend the brand? Because often if they're not willing to defend the brand, then, maybe it's not right. On the brand side, like if something like that happens, like they'd probably, they'd just be like, let's just cut ties, delete the content, and we don't want to work with you again, kind of thing. Quite often brands will also, they'll honor the agreement, they'll pay the creator and everything, but they say, look, we don't want to sort of be associated publicly with you, for example. So it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely something that in the industry, it's still quite a nascent industry. People are still learning. But that's what we're trying to focus on, is always make sure that both parties are aligned together. It's a partnership, not, if it's like billboard, brand buys billboard space for the creator, that's where it can go wrong.
Thank you.
Sure.
You've got a question, Jamai?
Yeah, I got one last one. So I was wondering, how do you use AI within running your business? Does it have a big effect in any of the processes that you currently have? Do you lean on it heavily, or is it something that you don't use too much?
Yeah, it's good. Good question, Jamai. Yeah, so I think increasingly kind of using AI is a bit like ultimately using like Google as a business. I think everyone is doing it, or if not, they should be or will be. So, it might be, it might be something as just using, ChatGPT to like help support different documentation. But I think, it's about using it cleverly. I think you'll all be aware of the sort of limitations of, what you put in, you get out what you put in kind of thing. So you can't sort of say, do this and you get amazing stuff. You got to sort of, in my mind, it's more like supporting right now. It's sort of like a co-writer. And then, yeah, we're exploring it and actually developing stuff for our platform right now in terms of using it, for sure. But yeah, in terms of the industry, there's obviously the big sort of Gen AI, so like creators using it to create content. Like that's not something we are focused on right now. We're focused more on like how can AI empower our work and our platform.
All right, awesome, thanks.
Cool. And I suppose sort of the last section then, like what is next for the industry? Very simple, high level, but number one, like I see like creators as community makers. So there's a lot of move towards, obviously a creator might have 1 million subscribers on YouTube, but more and more, how are they creating more of a connection with a smaller group, but like a much deeper connection? Newsletters are becoming, they're massive already, but they're increasingly big. Community platforms, in-person events, it's sort of like almost like going back to sort of before influencers, much more connection. Creators ventures, you'll have all seen this in different ways with big creators, but more and more like them creating brands, like them being the brands of the future, right? Creating their own brands, creating their own commerce companies, or partnering with brands on like a much deeper level and bringing out whole new areas of products. And then creators advisors, employees and marketing departments, like that's also a thing. Someone's built an amazing audience, understands connection with people, they're going to probably be quite good for helping build a company. And we see this with brands, like they might like work more closely with creators, in different ways that go beyond just sort of promotion. So that's kind of where I've landed. That's sort of the overview, but yeah, I'd love to have any other, there's really helpful questions already. Yeah, I'd love to hear if there are any other like sort of final questions as well.
I'm not sure if this has been answered, but somebody asked about is it the marketplace business model basically for your business, Nick?
Let me can't see. Let me see if I can. Okay, yeah, chat. Yes. Yeah, effectively, yeah, it is. We take a cut on the transaction.
Cool. And then we've got a question from Michael.
Thanks, Nick. That was really, really interesting. I have a couple of questions actually. Couple of quick ones. In terms of creators and like frequency, is there like an optimal frequency you find in terms of them building their audience and sort of their posting?
Yeah, so I suppose one of the things that's important is that a creator doesn't over promote. So that could be either the frequency or also the category. So if you're promoting Nike on Tuesday and then Adidas on Thursday, if you're like a footwear creator, that might be cool because they're like wanting to know what's in the market. But if you're like a hiking creator, then they're going to be like, well, what is the best boot? Is it this one or this one? You're telling me two things. So it's got to be both like categorization, like thinking cleverly about who are you partnering with and when, and what are you really believing in. And then, yeah, in terms of like the number of promotions, it obviously depends on time of year, how often a creator's posting. So if they only do one YouTube video, if they do one YouTube video a week and it's a simple ad, they could put one in every single video. But if it's like they're only posting one Instagram post a week and it's all about a brand, like that might be bad. So it's also like how often they're posting other content. So there's a whole different sort of framework. And we're, definitely helping creators to think through what's the right cadence. Because if you do too many or in the wrong way, then people are going to be like, well, is this actually something you believe in, or are you just promoting? And there's always going to be a bit of a balance, but ultimately you want people to really believe in the products they're promoting.
And following on from that, I guess it's dependent on the channel, right? So there's sort of influencers or creators on Instagram versus, I guess, more professional people on LinkedIn. the frequency is going to be different, right? And the channel strategy is going to be different. And I guess, do you work with people on LinkedIn, for example?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we're, in a sense, we're like platform agnostic, because like the principles are pretty much the same for what we do, you know, in terms of like supporting creators. But we don't work on LinkedIn currently, although it's an area that I find really interesting. It's definitely a big growing area in the space. So the answer to that is no, but I think it's really interesting.
Okay, great. And for those of us who are looking to, I guess, become creators, what's your top tip?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I suppose it's just from like working with creators for a long time. It's I think it's really sort of thinking about how do you get like 100 people that just love and connected with what you do, than trying to get 1 million that are sort of vaguely interested. Because if you can really get like 100 people, they'll tell their friends, they'll really build in, and you can really grow something really valuable. I think there's also a real value in being quite niche, particularly these days, you know, so just being the best of the world, but like some tiny thing that people come to, and then from there you can expand. So I wouldn't really worry too much about the numbers. I'd worry about like providing real value to a small group of people. That's like what, like, and newsletters. I think newsletters are fantastic. I think they're massively, blogs and newsletters I think are sort of undervalued. I think they're fantastic.
Finally, one more, sorry, just on like numbers and like, I guess, categorizations of like micro/macro creators. Is there like updated benchmarks that people need to reach for you to work with them, or?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to sort of like what area they're in, sort of, you know, because if they're in one area, it might be much more valuable than another, in terms of, say, like the food thing I mentioned. There's a really good article by I can find this after the call, but there's a really great document around, I wonder if I can screen share this. You see this? This is from a place I can't remember right now, but I can find the source of it. But yeah, this is a sort of categorization that's a bit too broad for me, my liking, but it's basically of the 200 million content creators that are out there, sort of semi-pro 1 to 10,000, pro 10 to 100, expert 100 to 1 million. Like we're definitely looking in terms of our platform at semi-pro and pro, and then in terms of who we manage closely, expert and expert.
Great, that's useful, thank you.
Cool. And then I guess we have one last question from Nicola.
Oh yeah. Hi Nick. You just mentioned newsletters a couple of times. It's the area that I want to specialize in. So I just wanted to get some tips on kind of like, where do you think that market is going, and the kind of things that I might need to pay attention to?
Yes, that's a good question, Nicola. I would there's a few areas. I'm not a newsletter specialist. I think the job that we do, we kind of spot what we think is doing well and how we can help creators do it. But like, I'm not myself like amazing at newsletters. But I would say I think Circle is a really cool business if you have come across it. They should give me an affiliate fee for this. Circle.so, it's a community-based platform. And you know, you can do newsletters, but you can also connect. There's a whole community function, right? So you can like host calls, you can charge people. So for me, like, it's like I'm part of a community for marketplace founders, and you pay a fee every month, and there's a lot of value of like interviews with people, interviews with investors, like learning stuff. So I think it's like, I think that's an interesting trend, is like people paying monthly fees for real curated value, you know, like like calls, like really interesting stuff. And then of course there's also the Substack, if you probably come across Substack, pretty big in the industry in terms of sort of managing newsletters. Yeah, general trend, I think sort of paid for newsletters, but you have to be providing massive value. If like a Netflix subscription is $8 a month, why would someone pay more than that for something? You know, you've got to have a lot of value.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
How are you with time, Nick? I think we still have one question in the chat, and then we've got
Yeah. One more question is great.
Right, sorry. So there's one on the chat. Fatima is asking, how do you find the right niche for you that is not very saturated?
Cool. Yeah. I think this depends on the context of this question, but in terms of what we were just discussing, I think you've got to go with what you love and what you're good at. You know, like my business is really focused on helping creators to build their business and to work. Like that's what I love. That's what I really feel like I thrive in, and like I love empowering creators to do that. Like I'm not good at so many other things. So I've like focused on like one thing I love and I feel like I'm sort of stronger at. So for me, like in terms of anyone building anything, I think you've got to go with what are you passionate about that you will be able to do day in, day out for years, basically, and not give up. Because ultimately, if you want to build anything of real value, I think it takes time. And then what's not very saturated, I kind of probably wouldn't worry too much about that. I'd worry about like just doing something that you love and you feel that you can, you know, add value in.
Carta, did you have a question? Just conscious of
Hi. Yeah. I was curious to what kind of job roles do you hire in your company based on like an entry level jobs, the titles?
Yeah, so we're a team of sort of 18 or so, sort of around 18 plus. So we you have different types of teams, but the core team is the team that's sort of facilitating and helping partnerships, account managers, that kind of thing. And so the way that we do it is we hire, we have associates. We have sort of, I suppose, like sort of coordinators, that sort of people who've maybe come in as a grad or like pre-grad, and they're sort of helping just support. We have associates who are sort of working closely with creators, senior associates that have more autonomy, and then managers. So that's kind of like the sort of way it works. We try and keep flat in the sense of like, you know, anyone can talk with anyone. We're not trying to like have lots of hierarchy, but sometimes clarity is good. And then, yeah, so I suppose that's connected to this. So we're always hiring, always looking for people. We're looking for sort of different roles right now. So I think the best is to, you know, connect with me, follow us. Everything we do goes on LinkedIn in terms of job roles. And yeah, definitely welcome like any interaction on that level. So we're always interested in sort of finding people that are passionate about, you know, what we do. Does that answer your question, Carson?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Thanks very much for that. I think that's all the time we have anyway. And thanks for kindly answering all the questions, Nick.
Sure.
Thanks for your time as well. Obviously, I really appreciate it. And thanks to our partnership team, Tor and Joanna, for organizing this.
Great.
Yeah, for any of us to connect with you on LinkedIn, yeah?
Yeah, go for it, and like connect with connect with the company as well. I kind of help manage that as well. And yeah, it was really nice to hear these questions, meet some of you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Thanks
Cool.
so much,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Lots of thanks coming through to you on the messages as well.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Right, that was really good, wasn't it?
I love that.
Yeah, we're also gonna talk about more about the influencer marketing on week 8 of the course, so watch out for that. And then we'll carry on with afternoon tasks. Shall we have a 20-minute break, guys? Because I know you're gonna be transferring to a different Zoom call So
Yeah,
we,
I think that's a good idea.
so we come back here at 3:25. Is that okay? Does that make sense? Does my math make sense?
Sounds great. Yeah, 3:25 everyone in separate groups, and see you shortly. Thanks,
Yeah.
Joe.
Perfect. See you guys then. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.